Right. I want us to cross straight to the Serie A, okay? And based on the current results that we've seen, it has actually given. We know that Inter Milan are the champions. They've won the Scudetto once again, right? And that also means that when you look at second place, the team that obviously is in second place currently is obviously their crosstown rivals AC Milan. And the good news for AC Milan is that they have qualified for the 2024-2025 edition of the UEFA Champions League. And which is also thanks to, it's credited to the fact that, Napoli and Roma, played to a 2-2 draw early, So AC Milan have mathematically qualified for the 2024-2025 edition of the UEFA Champions League. But it certainly wasn't quite in doubt, but now it has actually been fully confirmed, to say the least, because Milan only needed a win to actually secure a Champions League qualification for next season. But they settled for a point against Juventus. Therefore, they had to wait, for the clash between Napoli and Roma, which ended in a 2-2 stalemate, and thus actually stopped the Giallorossi in their tracks. So basically, the team from the capital, Roma, are currently in fifth place, the final UCL spot with 59 points, and that actually means that 11 points actually separate them, and AC Milan. And Atalanta, the UEFA Europa League finalists, as well as the Coppa Italia finalists currently, are basically in sixth place with 57 points, and they also have a game in hand. Meaning both of these teams can still mathematically leapfrog, the Rossoneri in the league standings. But I mean, that's an impossibility. That's not gonna happen, Yeah, it's really not gonna happen. But however, you just have to acknowledge the fact that both cannot do this, due to their encounter in the 36th round. And as such, AC Milan have mathematically secured, Champions League qualification. And it's a great result for them. It's great that they've qualified for the Champions League, but they haven't had a convincing season, Yes, they finished in second place, but to be honest, AC Milan, I don't think they've had a great season. Despite the fact now they go trophyless once again, right? So I don't necessarily think they've had a great season, but the fact that they finished second place, it should be thanks to the fact that Juventus have been slipping up, and Juventus consistently continue to slip up. From the fact that the Bianconeri were challenging for the league title. They kept on fumbling many games. They kept on fumbling. And then that's the reason why, now they're just out of the conversation, right? And perhaps Juventus might as well just settle for third place or even fourth place. It just depends on Bologna, another fairy tale club. Thiago Motta has actually done a stellar job with Bologna this season. And the Champions League qualification is, it will actually be a great financial booster for AC Milan. And the fans are actually hoping for big investments in the summer, with a new manager as well as a new number 9, a talisman up front will be needed, Remember, due to the fact that Olivier Giroud will be departing, he is going to be joining the MLS, right? He will be joining Los Angeles Galaxy in the MLS, so it has actually been confirmed. But I want us to go straight to the game between Juventus and AC Milan, what actually took place in that particular encounter. When it comes to AC Milan, after disappointments against AS Roma, Inter, AC Milan had to travel to Turin, with actually the hopes of redeeming themselves, of course. Although the performance at the Allianz Stadium was far from a brilliant performance, at least they were able to keep a clean sheet. That is a positive that they can take away from the game. And again, it was also indeed far from an entertaining game. To be honest, it was not entertaining at all. And it certainly didn't look like, a second against third in the league, right? Quality was lacking most of the time, especially by the Rossoneri, but at least, I can say, yes, they've qualified for the Champions League. Perhaps also the Bianconeri will be, securing Champions League qualification in the upcoming, match days or so, right? But you look at also the way how both teams approached this particular encounter. Maybe I think it's the coaches, they got their tactics incorrect, or their tactics just did not come according to fruition. And even the players, they were just not really applying themselves the way you would expect them to do so, But let's also look at AC Milan. On the side of AC Milan, the one player that I want us to talk about from AC Milan is the German centre-back, Theo. The German centre-back, remember, he has actually struggled a lot throughout the season. And it can be, the partial blame for that can be, pointed out to his injuries to an extent, But after recovering, he has also failed to actually find his form, right? And having said that, against Juventus, Malik, Theo was arguably the best player for AC Milan on the pitch, right? He got the better of, Dusan Vlahovic at times. This actually helped his team, secure a clean sheet, and eventually the point also making a goal clearance in the dying minutes, to actually secure AC Milan, a much needed point away from home to the Bianconeri, right? And, Theo showed very good positioning, and he had just the right amount of aggression to actually intercept the ball on multiple occasions. It's definitely a performance to actually build on and finish the season strongly. Also in the view of the upcoming campaign, in which, he could actually be decisive without any injuries, right? Because currently he's also going to miss out on getting a call up for the German squad, right? The German national team. Remember, they will be hosting the Euros, in the summer of 2024. Currently just like over in a month's time or so. And look, another one, Marco Sportiello. He had to step in and replace Magnan, as the Frenchman wasn't fit enough to actually participate in the game, sustaining an injury during the warm-up. And this particular experienced goalkeeper did a stellar job in terms of helping his side keep a very important clean sheet. Admittedly, he didn't actually have loads, to do thanks to the performances of his centre-backs. And however, when he was called into action, Sportiello really stepped up and actually denied Vlahovic a free kick, right? Vlahovic had a great free kick opportunity, and he was able to force a decent save from the AC Milan goalkeeper. And then he also had a double chance for Juventus, right? But I can say, AC Milan fans, they can't ask for much more than that. In fact, he probably performed even better than what you can demand from a deputy goalkeeper. And another thing that also needs to be mentioned about AC Milan and their performance in this particular encounter against Juventus is the midfield. The midfield seems to be in shambles. There's a disaster in that midfield. There's no point in separating the midfielders. Obviously you have Yacine Adli, you have Tijani Redness, as both of them were very dreadful on the night. They both struggled with their passing. Their passing accuracy was just very poor. Very, it was just poor, man. Their performance was so lethargic, lackluster. You look at their passing in the attacking phase. It's sort of, they both lack the urgency, to truly impose themselves, right? And no big mistakes were actually made at the back, except, perhaps one or two, poor passes. But it was their failure to actually dictate the tempo and actually create chances that were actually noticeable. Juventus were thus able to take control of that part of the pitch very easily, And again, we always speak about this many times. We point out this particular situation that, games are always won in the midfield. Football games are won in the midfield. So if you can't dictate the tempo, if you can't dictate, the pitch, if you can't dictate how the flow of the game, from the midfield, then obviously you will come second best. And Adli, he has been very up and down lately. So perhaps his outing was less surprising. But Redness, he's usually the most lively midfielder for AC Milan. He's simply being quiet of late, though it's actually starting to affect the Rossoneri big time. His poor and dreadful performances are starting to affect the team big time. Whereas Ruben Loftus-Cheek, also struggled with his decision making in the final third, after usually doing the right things in the build-up. And it is actually to be noted that Ruben Loftus-Cheek can actually make a great impact. He can have a massive impact on games, but He's just not having that at the moment. And I guess that's also going to cost him a place in the England, squad for the Euro 2024. It's really going to cost him as well. And AC Milan, again, they were also toothless in the final third. It wasn't just the midfield that had a night to forget. Christian Pulisic, Olivier Giroud, Rafael Leao, they were also very ineffective and poor throughout the game. You take a look at the stats. It was actually toothless to say, the least, with 0 shots on target. Pulisic made himself available a lot and managed to actually get on the ball on several occasions. But the end product simply wasn't there. And there was no flair from the American. Rafael Leao was arguably worse, as he didn't even try to get the ball as much as you expect, excluding 1 or 2 good runs. And finally, the Frenchman, Olivier Giroud, failed to position himself properly for crosses as well as passes, losing all the duels against the Juventus defense. The Frenchman, he tried to drop deeper and actually combine with his teammates, but it didn't really work to great effect. And it was actually a very tough game for him, Hopefully that also won't cost him, a spot in Le Bleu. Hopefully Didier Deschamps will give him a second chance, But I guess, Olivier Giroud hasn't been having a decent season. And again, Stefan Pioli. Last but not least, Stefan Pioli. Tactically, once again, very poor. Very poor. The fact that AC Milan had 0 shots on target shows the kind of mentality they had, entering the game. Surely, it was understandable to keep the distance down to Juventus, but, Pioli completely, failed to make the most of his attacking quality. And a club like the Rossoneri cannot travel to Turin just for a point. They should be going there to secure maximum points. You understand? And not only are the attacking struggles pretty new, though, as the Italian has actually struggled tactically throughout the season, as well as in the last campaign. AC Milan are just they're so boring to watch. They're so lackluster at this particular point. It's like a rinse and repeat approach and no speed or movement whatsoever to the attacking plays. Nothing. And you ask yourself, man, they better really, really make some reinforcements over the summer. They really need to make reinforcements.